Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our panel discussion on AI number 2. Why number 2? Because we had one very exciting last Wednesday, talking about AI in startup, unleashing overcoming challenges. Today, we slightly moved to something more broadly in terms of AI ethics and future impact, navigating responsible AI in business. Now, as we talk navigating responsible AI in business affects everyone. There are companies today, they are working more than, for example, Apple, Italy and Greece GDP together, not even cover 3 trillion. So very much AI affects everyone. So when we talk about AI in business, we very much talk about as a whole to any human being. So today we are here with 4 great panelists exactly covering these aspects of AI. There is so much exciting on AI. Everyone is excited, but everyone is very much worried as well. So we try to balance today and talking between the excitement, but also regulation and how AI can be very good and try to lower as much as we can any threat from artificial intelligence. So let me walk through our great panelists today, which I'm going to introduce one by one, and after we start with our topics. So let me start with our first panelist, Leah Butterman, CEO and founder of Anima Hub Ltd. Welcome, Leah. Thank you so much for being part and be with us today. And if you want to give an introduction to yourself.
Thanks, Max. Yes, I've been working in conversational AI since 2009, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. I founded my own startup for wellness optimization in 2018, and I really want to use that to help to challenge some of the problems that we face globally when it comes to healthcare.
Thank you so much, Leah. So let me move to our second panelist, which is Arek Skuza, US Consulting Director and Principal, AI Strategy, Future Processing Founder, Volta Venture. How's it going, Arek?
It's going good. Thank you so much. Saying hello from Dallas, Texas. A pleasure to be here. Quickly about myself, I'm looking after a consulting unit in the United States. Future Processing, except for other services, has a pretty strong data solution and artificial intelligence machine learning business unit. We do projects in that space, especially predictive analytics and recommendations, like predicting and recommending stuff. Happy to be here. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, Arek, to be with us today. Let me move to our third panelist, Enrique Munoz de Coten, AI entrepreneur, scientist and builder, tech advisor. How's it going, Enrique?
Thank you, Max. All good, thank you. I've been innovating in AI and machine learning for the past 15 years. I have a PhD in machine learning. I've written a bunch of peer-reviewed academic papers in the area. My specialty is in decision-making. However, I've been doing machine learning all over the space of machine learning. I have a couple of books and patents. For the past 7 years, I've been creating AI ventures and consulted VC-backed startups in biotech, fintech, insurtech, even the government in the UK.
Thank you so much, Enrique. We are very excited to talk about today. Alex Huangcha, co-founder and director of AI engineering at Neuros Lab. How's it going, Alex?
It's going really great. Hello, everyone from Madrid, Spain, and I'm Alex. I'm last more than 10 years, almost like Enrique, but not that much. Basically also working in AI, building, writing papers, writing blogs, YouTube's teaching universities, founding companies, basically doing everything around AI. And today I'm co-founder and partner at Neurons Lab, where all this knowledge and new knowledge of our company combined is for building AI solutions for our clients, primarily in healthcare and energy. So basically solving health, solving energy for us all. Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Before we start, anyone wants to make any question, please make your question and we'll bring to our panelists. We have 4 topics. We divided some topics. And let me start with our topic number 1. Our topic number one is ethical AI development and transparency. So we talk so much about ethical in AI, and it's a very big concern for many. And we're here today to talk and try to find not a solution, but explaining better how does it work and the main issue and how we can overcome any possible these topics. So, Leah, do you want to start with the ethical dimension of AI, which is transparency, bias, and accountability?
Yes, I think when we're dealing with ethics within AI, it's important first to look at how we're defining AI ethics. And to me, that really comes down to how we solve the problem of human ethics and ethics within business. So looking at, do we give AI the freedom to make decisions? And how do we apply that rational justification for its behaviors? And making all of that process transparent. The problem that we really face is that there isn't one moral standard that applies globally. We have different individual, business-based, cultural differences when it comes to ethics. And some cultures will focus on the good of the individual, others will prioritize social good. So making those sorts of decisions within AI is very difficult because it's contextual. So that's really something that I think we need to do when we're talking about AI and ethics is having that dialogue around those differences and then finding a framework that we can apply that can be used in those different contexts.
Alex, do you want to follow with something on your side?
Yeah, actually, what is interesting here, since we have a discussion, is that are we asking for the AI, basically want it to be transparent, not biased, accountable, but are we asking it the same as asking for the humans, organizations, corporations, institutions? Because I would say not everything we have around us is fully transparent, completely unbiased, and really accountable for the actions. So I will play the devil advocates here. So aren't we asking for AI things more than we're actually asking for traditional entities? And maybe Leah, Enrique, Arek, and Max, you can answer to this. Because I'm suspicious that we might be asking too much. Might be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, let me before I give the talk to Enrique or Arek. I was exactly thinking about this while writing the topics with my team. They say we ask AI, since AI is something outside humans, we are the one who gives input to AI. We are the one who decide where to place the output. So we are still humans controlling everything. So we should look at ourselves before then trying to have AI 100% accountable for whatever is going to be. But Arek, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really like the comment that Leah gave us here and shared her insight. From the business perspective, as a consultant and a person that works closely with customers to solve their problems, I also need to mention that the pretty interesting part of the bias and fairness in AI systems is also protecting the algorithm from taking an action. So basically what we don't want to happen. One thing is a bias. So we want things to be equal, justice, and diverse, and make sure that the credit or frauds for, let's say, white-skinned people and black-skinned people will be equally handled. That's one thing. But also we want AI to stop doing certain things. And that's pretty important also, especially from privacy and data protection. And when we're talking about predicting prices, for instance, if we think about people using a Mac computers versus PC computers, if we use that data unequally, we might predict the different pricing level for people that are using Mac computers, supposing they have deeper pockets, versus people that are using more like low-end computers. So that's only an example, and it's what's like kind of like simplified. But we don't want AI also to make some actions, which is also important. We know that algorithm is going to do something, but we are just actually asking for not doing that. So from my perspective, I would love to add that. So, and kind of like put a little bit of lights on that part of AI too.
That makes perfect sense, Arek. I think also like just touching back on this on the bias topic, which I think it's the one that we have a lot of exposure. I mean, we've touched on the human element of AI, which is super interesting, and I think that's the crux of everything, really. I mean, the data is ingested by us. We give it the data so that AI can actually build those models. And if that data is biased, then biased meaning that it has some kind of skew, probabilistic or statistical skew that doesn't resemble the reality, then the results are going to be biased, just as us humans, right? So there's no way around that other than training humans on giving it better data, and also training humans or general public that are going to be using more and more these AI tools, that these things will always be biased. And I think something that I have trouble explaining to other people like my mom and dad about AI is this probabilistic nature on how they make decisions. That's pretty hard to convey, and I think until us as users of AI become well acquainted with what probability means and how these models are probabilistic in nature, it's going to be a tough one to actually use them responsibly.
Do you believe, guys, we can one day reach an unbiased AI? Because I don't believe so.
I mean, if we as humans will be completely unbiased and we will generate unbiased data based on our decisions, we might. But is it in the human nature, and are we really going to change human nature? I mean, I think it's a very philosophical topic, but we can spend the whole event discussing this.
I honestly believe it never will happen. I'm not that. I don't have so many doubts about it, because it's going to be very difficult for humans to be unbiased. Right? We should cancel millions of years of history behind us, and we make us very biased as we are today.
I mean, yeah.
I would love to make
it depends on the definition of bias also, but definitely on mimicking nature just as it is, it's going to be a tough one. However, I do think that there are some things that we can set in place in order to make it more like reality. And one of my favorite ones is, well, we need to ingest more variance, meaning more diversity. And unless we do that, we're always going to be like super skewed. Like, for example, we need to be able to train without needing to build models, meaning we're in this era of ChatGPT, billions of parameters. We don't have the capabilities of training these huge models, but we regardless need to be able to do something about that, because otherwise that doesn't really, we have nothing to do about that. And diversity, so putting it in every corner of the world, really means that these models are pervasive everywhere. And how do we do that? Well, we need to make them smaller, and we need them. So that's how we, in my personal view, that's the way that we can make it as universally accessible as possible.
Thank you, Enrique.
Well, if I may, I'll give a quick comment that if we look at the frameworks that we can leverage to build, I would say, unbiased AI or fair AI, if we look at what Google is suggesting, or even European Union, which I believe we will be talking about that later, we can see there is always a stage which is called monitoring and optimization stage, which means that even we've reached the high level of fair AI output, which will be almost bias-free, almost fair, and almost transparent, we will never reach to that point that we can stop monitoring and optimizing. So from that perspective, we can be sure that every company, every business needs to have a framework in place and make sure that monitoring and optimization is always in place. And from that perspective, we are almost 100% sure it will be never done.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm moving to a second subtopic because we have few to talk about. And Alex, guarding user trust, privacy, data protection, and ethical AI development.
Yeah, I would say this is something we can go a bit down to earth, because basically unbiased AI, transparent AI, that's on the high level, it sounds really vague. What is transparent AI? But what I think a bit on the ground level, what we all really want, for example, when we use any kind of social media or any kind of app, what we really care about, that our personal data is not going to be basically somewhere outside on the streets and the internet. So it's basically private data stays protected. And a lot of ethics is actually about this. And I would say that this is kind of like the baseline supposition that that's what we want to have. And when talk about the ethical AI development, this is actually much more, in my opinion, really vague area, because this will come in the back. Again, what is biased and unbiased? And Enrique, what you said is a really good thing about having a lot of small models and having them accessible for everyone. What it actually really means that we'll have a lot of small biased models where every person potentially can have their own views, beliefs, and biases. And everyone has their own biased, let's say, ChatGPT or any other bot, which basically resembles human nature. We're coming back to this topic again. But this is actually sounds like a really realistic scenario. You shouldn't be afraid or build one big, general, unbiased or biased, transparent or transparent AI. You have your own small thing. You can make it biased and biased, transparent and transparent, just like you build your own life, your own company, your own family, etc., etc.
Thank you, Alex. Leah, do you want to add something more?
Yes, I think that this is actually a task that we can delegate to AI, that we can solution a tool which would be able to identify where we have biases or gaps in our training sets and have the guards guard the guards. I think that when we're looking at very big data sets, it's very difficult for humans to spot those biases that are inherent. And by using the AI to assist us in that task, I think we can have more fair data models.
But Arek, opinion, how do we can protect the users from data, the privacy, data protection, and it's going to be very complicated in many terms.
It is, but we need to also remember that, yes, we need to also remember that there are at least three ways AI is present in our world. First one, AI is doing stuff automatically in 100% for us. Second, AI is augmenting our world. And the second, we are actually looking after AI. Different reports coming from McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, and as a consultant, we also follow those trends, are saying that the biggest impact AI is going to have is going to be in augmenting our work space, which means that the biggest impact on us is going to be when we are actually leveraging AI to do something for us. For instance, we have medical device that doctors are actually navigating in their hands, but that medical device is suggesting the next action during, for instance, a surgery. That's a pure example of augmenting our world. Like we are using almost autonomous trucks to predict how far we can get with this load, but we make a final decision how to navigate that. That's the areas when we are going to be affected by AI the most. So how we can protect data and privacy from this action depends on actually how far those models that are steering those devices are capable of taking the actions. And we need to remember that in consulting business, the problems are real. We are not talking about future. We're talking about churn prediction. We are talking about predictive maintenance. And that can be possible only if we have a certain set of data. And that data needs to be obtained through very ethical and transparent way. So for instance, we need to tell users or customers how we're going to use that data. We cannot use that data for unethical actions. So that's the one way of protecting us. Second way, there's many, at least 10 of them, can be, we might generalize the data. So instead of saying how or when the person was born, we can tell how old is this person. That actually is removing a lot of risk from sharing the data with third parties, for instance. So there are certain actions we can need to take place, but we need to remember that most of the cases we are going to be influenced is when the AI is going to augment our world, not to take over that world and remove us from the equation. I hope that was the answer to your question.
Thank you, Arek. Enrique, would you like to add something more?
Well, yes, I think so. I was just actually asking not ChatGPT, just Google, plain old Google, how many users have used ChatGPT in the so far, and according to the first hit, there's been 100 million users, and I think that's a very interesting number. So I think the general public understands AI as ChatGPT, and it's very important for the general public to understand that that's not AI. That's just one tiny piece of the puzzle. And this generative AI, people need to be more aware of what that really means. That is just completing the next part of a sentence. There's nothing more to that. There's no sentience. There's no intelligence. There's bits and pieces that complement that view. That's also part of AI, or more broadly speaking. That also it's interesting. So I think the next gen of AI, it's going to be more about these interfaces that interact with us users. It's kind of like ChatGPT that is great with text, and augmenting with other types of AI that does better decision making, that does ontologies, that does planning. And that's going to be the next stage. But for now, people, we need to be super aware of of what generative AI is and how people should be thinking about the results that these things produce. That is not correct all the time. They're just filling in the blank in the most possible, giving the result that is most probably correct, but not necessarily.
I really thank you, Enrique, because the explosion AI has been since November 2022 when ChatGPT has been released to the public. But again, as is perfectly said, AI is not ChatGPT. I mean, just very much a small fraction of the fraction. Anyway, let me walk to our second topic, which is one of the most worried topics I've been reading and listening so far in AI, which is taking the workforce away. So, Leah, automation, reskilling, and ethical workforce management. There are so many people worried wherever in the world that AI will take away so many jobs. So, would you like to start on this topic?
Yeah, so I think the worry is well placed in that we have crossed a threshold now. And we need to be thinking along the terms of if something can be automated, it will be automated. But in my opinion, I think this is a good thing. I think it's in humanity's best interest that humans are capable of so much more than emulating robots, of doing these very repetitive roles all of the time. But we need to adapt and we need to refocus and look at what skills are unique to humans. What do we do best? So this involves a lot of education, looking to the next generation, developing a workforce of generalists who are adaptable. But we do need to really look at the reality of this, that a lot of people don't have that luxury to be able to reskill, spend time educating themselves. It's a very difficult problem that when you're thinking about putting food on the table or putting a roof over your head, you don't really have time to ideate over your ideal role or dedicate time to training. So as a society, we have a responsibility to prepare, get ahead of this, to make sure that nobody is left behind.
Thank you, Leah. Alex.
I would say as a society, we already went through those cycles several times. At least we can talk about the industrial revolutions and maybe some other previous events. And we always got off the situations better with more food, more health, more education, more wealth, thanks to the steam power, electricity, computers, internet, etc., etc. And actually, people who like in a moment stayed behind, actually society helped them. It's like, maybe for a while, some people might, we say stay behind, but actually we cannot say that some societies or individuals were really left away after electricity got invented. Yes, someone lost a job, but I would say most of the people found a new job. New jobs are being created all the time. It's like even with the ChatGPT, someone needs to work with this model, train this model, work together with these models. Actually, the result of this on the society is more jobs, more wealth, more health, more education, but with some uncomfort in the moment, which maybe is normal if you can control the damage and the downside. That's my take on this with the historical references. And there are numbers that support it.
I believe what is new creates some kind of feeling uncomfortable until you really know what is the outcome and what's going to actually happening. It's too new AI. There is so much talk, but still must be seen a lot. Arek.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really love the comments that Alex and Leah made before. I would love to mention one thing that by 2024, which is 1 year, companies were approximately invest about $120 billion purely in AI systems. We need to say that AI systems are mostly systems that can predict. And here I would love to also put a little bit more light on that automation can be done without AI. If we're talking about automating processes, we don't need AI for that. Like automating copying, pasting from one spreadsheet to another doesn't require AI. And automating the process of exporting invoices into one single PDF as one of the classical projects of robotic process automation doesn't require AI. AI brings something more to this equation, which is prediction. And there's an interesting book I would love to recommend here, which is called Power and Prediction, when authors, beautiful and brilliant minds from Canada, explain that AI actually, it's only one system or set of algorithms, whatever we call it, that can predict with the highest accuracy we ever seen. And one more thing, that prediction is getting cheaper and cheaper. So to predict when our customers are going to leave us or when the machine will break, stuff we do in future processing, that predictions are getting cheaper and cheaper, which means that more companies can afford those. They're getting cheaper because there are computing power is cheaper, cloud solutions are cheaper, many different factors influence that. So if we're talking about workforce and replacing us with AI, we need to also mention one important element, that AI is doing stuff people could not do before, or they could do it partially, which is predicting. Obviously, predictions of AI are coming with different qualities and with different accuracies. So for instance, ChatGPT or BART or Bloom or Falcon models, they can still hallucinate, which means that basically the prediction is at the lower quality than we expect. But from a workforce replacement, that's another argument which is saying us that AI needs us. And I believe there is this famous saying that was kind of walking every corner of the Twitter and Facebook and social media, saying that AI will not replace us. The person that using AI is going to replace us, which we can also understand, like the person that can predict with AI, the main function of artificial intelligence is actually a person that can present higher level of productivity than the person without AI. So I would say I am not a person that is trying to say, and I'm kind of like disagree with the statement that AI is going to replace us, but definitely productivity of people, teams, and organizations that leverage AI is they will be more efficient, and they will push out from the market those that are kind of struggling or are late to the table. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Very much insightful. Enrique.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Arek is saying. But put in other words, I think AI is not displacing humans or taking jobs. I think the jobs that are going to be to spare are people that are not using AI. Definitely, those ones are at risk or at bigger risk in specific sectors specifically. But not that AI is going to do the job for them. Is that these jobs will require to be capable of using AI to augment themselves. And if they don't do that, they are in serious risk of being displaced by people that actually know how to use them.
Thank you, Enrique. Before we move to the next topic, we have our hashtag AI at EM, with EM, sorry. So everyone that want to write this hashtag, at the end, we are going to give 1 month free for version 2.0 IoT Match. Is going to be live end of the year. First, maybe Q1, no, let's say January 2024, and it will take 1 month free of our subscription. So everyone, please, hashtag AI with EM, and we'll choose the winner before just closing this panel discussion. Now, Enrique, going back to workforce, what's the response of the society to AI?
So
Before maybe another, but how exactly the workforce is feeling, in your opinion?
yeah, I think you framed it quite right previously. I think AI is quite new, especially to everyone, to the general audience. It has been just opened up to the public, really. So people are starting to become aware of this thing that was on books all over the place in the last 20 years, but now it's becoming ubiquitous for them. They see it. Even my parents are familiar with. Now finally they kind of understand what I've been doing for the past 15 years. Well, in a way that they know that there's this thing that it exists, and they can input some stuff, some written text, and they get spit out something in return that sounds almost like a human, and that's great for them. That's the way that I interact with them. They don't understand, they don't have a clue how these things are working behind the scenes, and again, I think that's quite dangerous. So I think the general response is that people are starting to feel that this thing on the other side of the table, it's becoming more and more human-like, according to them, and it's a threatening world because they don't understand it, and I think we need more guardrails. I think ChatGPT or OpenAI did a fine job on releasing this to the public by putting the right guardrails to make it more accessible and not just hallucinate most of the time. So we need more and more of those guardrails in order to make it to the mainstream. That's my feeling.
Thank you so much, Enrique. Alex, what's your view on the feeling?
Yeah, I would add on this. I'll give a specific example. Like in our company, what we do basically AI software development, AI consulting, and let's even remove AI. Let's say data software, whatever, right? And right now, with the help of ChatGPT and other solutions, actually a lot of people can create software, websites, and even AI solutions by themselves. Like you don't need consultants, you don't need software developers. You can just go take ChatGPT and get the ready results. So how we, as a company, we could react? Oh no, we are so scared we'll be out of business, etc., etc. But actually, and it could be like a nature of first reaction. But if you think a little bit, what is the outcome of this? More and more people will create digital software companies. Okay, for the first solution, they will not go to us. They'll create very first versions by themselves, but the pie is growing. There'll be more people in business, more opportunities for everyone. And basically, this is actually the great news. There will be more people creating those websites, AI solutions, data solutions. They'll do a lot of things by themselves, but there are still challenges. They can't do everything by themselves. So we will not be out of business. We'll have actually more business because the pie just became much, much bigger. So I think this is how us as a company and workforce, and also the workforce, have to react to this. There are two reactions, and the first one is natural, but I think second one is more rational.
I mean, as we say, problems bring solutions, opportunities. So let's find the right solutions, opportunities. Leah.
Yes, I think if we look at it from a customer support call center perspective, I've seen a lot of people have quite challenging reactions to the introduction of conversational AI. And when you put yourself in the shoes of someone who's worked in a role for 20 plus years, and then they're faced with this new technology, which isn't going to replace all of their functions, but is going to augment the way they do things, and maybe they have a little bit of aversion to technology anyway, then their sense of security within their role and then their levels of motivation can really drop, stress levels can go up, and it is something that we need to handle very sensitively. And having a robust change management strategy is really important to create this collaborative culture so that people feel included, valued, that their concerns are being heard, and that they can learn about what is the impact of AI on their role, on their career path, and really how it's going to affect them. And I think if you manage that process right, and how this AI is going to benefit them and make their lives easier, then you will have much more positive reactions and have a lot less resistance when you're trying to introduce a new system.
Yeah, Leah, and I also want to add on this. Actually, you're really right. And what is the good thing that's going to happen because of this, the companies that basically are going to treat their employees and workers badly because of this, they also will be out of business. Because right now, the winners will be who are both using AI and treating people good. And I think there's kind of like another not trivial impact that we are going to see, because I don't believe that the companies that will just laying off thousands of people are gonna survive this, because it's not the age we are living in.
That's completely correct. Arek, I want to start with you with topic. Please, but if you want to ask something, please go.
No. Go ahead. I thought you were going to ask me, but please proceed.
No. If you want something more on this topic, please do. And after we jump to the topic number 3.
Just quickly, this is very interesting discussion. I want to just put here like a little bit more simple and down to the earth problem that was spotted by Microsoft. And we're talking about efficiency, worker placements. I think it's kind of relevant. Like Microsoft pull up the report saying that people want AI to be in the workplace because they want to increase their productivity. And one of the simple things they realize is that if people are late around 15 minutes to every single meeting, they cannot catch up. That means there is no way that meeting can be productive. I don't want to mention that there's too many meetings in organizations, because that's another point of this report. But if we think about this down to the earth, very precise example, and we will remove that 15 minutes latency, we can increase the productivity, and that's what people expect. So if we can provide them a summary of first 15 minutes, and I'm saying that after Microsoft report, we can give people a boost in the productivity. So one thing is that replacement, automation, prediction, but on the other side, there are really down to the earth problems that actually systems like summarization, speech to text, text to speech, wherever we call it, can solve. So just a quick comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Arek. I want to stay with you and open in the topic number 3. Promoting a responsible AI ecosystem, building trust, collaboration, and ethical leadership. So let's start with us through collaboration and responsible AI. Who is in charge of this?
Yeah, this is very interesting thing. So from a consulting perspective, we always hunt for problems we can solve for our customers at future processing. And who is responsible for that? That's super cool question, and it's a very hard one. And before I will just shoot a question here to all of you guys, I also want to mention some stats I checked this morning preparing for this meeting, which I really love, is that, and that's actually answer the question who is responsible, but because there is a dark side, everybody's talking about AI, but numbers are saying there is not so much action. So who should be responsible for that? So European Union gave more or less like 10 billion euro in different programs that are called framework programs. And 13% of these programs were about AI. But only 30% of that 13%, which is really low number, was mentioning AI, trustworthiness, transparency. So we see projects in AI that people are not taking AI and ethics into consideration. So talking about this question, collaboration and responsibility, who is responsible for that? I would say those are founders, and I would love to learn the opinions of other people that are in this panel. Those are founders, but those are also politicians, universities, and also C-level guys. So I would say the risk is to spread out. If we compare that to cybersecurity, there is usually 1-2 people in any company, any organization that is looking after cybersecurity, data breach, and things like that. If we look at AI, we actually can see kind of a blurred surface. So I was wondering what you guys think about it from this responsibility perspective, and also if you think what I learned is who is going to look after AI systems that are going to be responsible, especially at the edge of customer service, at the edge of the customer in a company, when this data is coming from one side to another. So I would shoot that question to you guys, and maybe somebody would like to give a comment from your perspective.
Who wants to take it?
Well, I can just put some extra context here. I think an example is when DeepMind was acquired by Google. The requirement was to set up an ethics committee, right? That's great. I think that gives a little bit of a head start of the implications that AI, the unknown implications of AI could have, and this committee was responsible for understanding those consequences. Who's responsible in that case? Well, in a way, just setting up a committee is not enough, is it? I mean, just understanding or somebody flagging that there might be something wrong with the AI or what kind of implication that might have with the consumer. It's not enough if the C-level people are not there to get this input and do something about that. And we see some examples of that, of very permissible companies that don't do enough about the consequences that they had the reports. We know about those reports and about the consequences that these not only AI, but these systems have on the public, and still not doing anything. Is that a problem of the C-level people, or is that the problem of not having enough regulation? I don't know. It's a little bit of both, probably. So I just delegate to the next one that wants to pick up on that.
Thank you so much, Enrique.
I can give a comment. Actually, when I talk about, like, let's say responsible AI and etc., I would say that a lot of work should be done on the tech side, because I don't know how many of you guys who are watching are actually like into technology, neural network, blah, 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 but even if you're not, basically how this even ChatGPT is created. There is taking a lot of data, there is one big neural network trained, then it's been somehow tested, and then they give to us the ChatGPT. But actually there are smaller AI systems that are built in a similar way, and actually if you're a good scientist, good engineer, when you get a piece of data, you actually study it. You see what are the properties, biases, average values, some outliers, and actually there is a large, big process. And if you talk about, like, if you're responsible about your solution, you're going to do that. You're going to study the data. Then there is model training. Also, it's like you don't just, press the button and just go away. You study how it's going. You validate it on different scenarios, different data pieces, compare it, etc., etc. So again, if you're a good engineer, good scientist, you do the responsible work when you build AI models, when you validate the models. And then when you give this model to people, you also monitor how it's used, how people use it, what answers they see, people give the feedback, and then you retrain it. So I would say a lot of this kind of responsibility talk is actually on the shoulders of the people who own the scientists, of the engineers. And I would say those are already good practices. Like if you're a good machine learning scientist or engineer, you are already responsible from the data perspective, models perspective, scenarios perspective, feedback perspective. And if you don't do this, well, I have bad news for those people.
There are some comments,
Yeah.
and please go, guys.
I'd just like to add that.
Can I make a? Okay, go ahead, Leah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No,
course.
So let's start with Leah, and after we go to Marek.
Thank you. Yes, I think that whilst companies have to answer to shareholders, there's always going to be a conflict between profits and ethics, and that does need to be worked out.
Arek.
Yeah, I want to make a quick comment that I really like what Alex said, and I completely agree with also Leah's comment. One comment I would love to put on top of that is that, for instance, we partner with Databricks because the process of controlling the model, retraining the model, cleansing data, making sure that data is the highest possible quality so we can kind of mitigate the bias, transparency, and fairness of AI can be handled now on the platform. So like, for instance, Databricks, they have a pre-trained model called Dolly, like the Dolly ship we know from this, old school experiments. And those platforms can actually navigate that. The reason I'm saying that is because companies, they need to have a framework, like the specific way of steps they can take to make sure that the result will be obtained. So in this particular case, we're talking about responsibility. So if I can hire platforms like Databricks, Snowflake, there's many of them, and make sure that the process is guarded by the best practices, that also can help, especially in the companies when there is no clear way of navigating, controlling, and managing development of the fair AI or transparent AI. Thank you so much. I'm done talking.
Thank you so much, Arek. I really like this panel discussion. Let's interact a bit with our audience. So, Leah, this is for you. And if you want to, I don't know, follow to Pete, Thomas?
Sure, I'm just reading.
So, this is more for... It's about not only Leah, it's about, I'm starting with you, Leah, and after we move to others, but let's interact a bit with the audience as well. So what do you think about this topic? for example.
Yeah, I completely agree with Pete that whilst profit is the priority, we are always going to be looking to reduce human labor costs and use technology to create more profit. And that can benefit humanity and it can harm humanity. So it really depends on how profit and ethics are balanced.
Again, I don't know, guys, if you want to follow Pete's comment, but again, we got to the point that we still believe that AI will remove us from the globe sometimes, but we can create so many jobs. Reskilling is
It
not.
doesn't mean we are not going to have another work. Maybe it's actually for good that we will be fired from the works we have right now because we're going to do something more interesting. Why don't we look at the positive side?
Yeah, and I agree. And also I want to add that if you look, and that's not my specialty, but if you look at that autonomous transportation, like trucks that are developing faster than the passenger cars, removing, which haven't happened yet, or maybe it happened, but partially. Like in Texas, we have like trucks going from Dallas to Austin because that's the highway conditions lets them do it without drivers. But anyway, even if that happened on a large scale, that creates the cybersecurity market. Obviously, the question is if the driver will skill to be a cybersecurity expert. I don't know if that's possible. I'm not the specialist, but that creates another opportunities, maybe on the other end, but those opportunities are created. So if we're talking about removing us, it will not create the vacuum. And there is definitely a space where those jobs will be created. They will require reskilling for sure, but they will be there.
I'm a big fan of AI removing from us jobs that are not that high quality, jobs that actually do not produce any form of productivity. And collecting data, AI will be always above us. There is no way we can process so many data. Even the most intelligent one being on Earth won't be enough. And it's been seen already. AI in games overtake us in any possible way, not only in games. Much better jobs, as Alex and Arek was saying, can be created. Very much so. Now, as we don't have so much time left, what about ethical leadership? Does it go straight to the government, or is more to the company, or actually to the ourselves as humans?
I can jump in, and I think the simple answer is to the governments, because this is something what we are as humans used to. And I see among many people, intellectuals, this kind of like we need to give more power back to the governments, especially like in the Western world, because we're sick of these capitalist companies, etc. Which, regardless, the opinions kind of can make sense. But I would say the more realistic scenario is that actually we'll have shared responsibilities between the most old organizations like governments, which also will take their part in the ethics. But also we already see a lot of efforts from the companies, like even Meta, Google, etc. Yeah, they want to earn, obviously, but actually a lot of initiatives on the fairness, bias, etc. are coming from them and their research. And also what is new right now in our age, we have a lot of community-based work. It includes open source communities, it includes decentralized organizations that take a lot of responsibility by their own, outside of the corporate work or government work, and introduce their own solutions, their own initiatives, their own standards. And many other organizations, like a lot of corporates and some government organizations, they use open source work, open source protocols. And that's why I see narrative about like, let's give more power back to the governments. But I think the more real world scenario will be shared responsibility between governments, corporates, and this new type of community-like, decentralized-like organizations. We already see it, and I think it's going only to evolve.
Thank you, Alex. Anyone else want to add something more?
Well, I completely agree. I think also I would put a little bit on that of weight on society. If we believe that free markets are here to stay, then the natural forces of supply and demand will dictate what the company ends up doing. But if the demand for these totally capitalist view doesn't stick anymore because it doesn't provide the right ethics and so on. So the society, it's basically saying no to those kind of capitalist maximalist. Then probably that's a good way of sharing responsibility, and we know that governments are not great at keeping up with regulation when it comes with the technology overall. So I think society needs to take a little bit of weight on this.
But do you not believe, Rika, that tech is just too fast to be regulated? That's my point of view.
Yes.
The speed is so fast that you can't simply cope. There's no way. You are regulating something that is already finished, and something else is already gone. It's moved.
Yeah.
What do you think, Arek?
I think that that's actually, thank you so much for asking. This is a very interesting topic for me. From a company's perspective, the clarity is required to make sure that something can be properly managed. What I'm trying to say is, in Europe, we do have GDPR that protects the data from being used unethically. And by the way, a couple of days ago, Spotify was fined like $5 million or $5 million or euro, whatever, for not going along with GDPR rules. But this is the example I'm providing because GDPR is pretty well defined. As far as the general law, you can quickly, or you maybe need like a small group of lawyers to explain you what you can do as a company or what you cannot. With artificial intelligence, I agree that governments cannot catch up, but we also need to remember that companies are struggling too, because the definition of unbiased AI, all the things we've discussed today, the definition of these things, it's not there. It's hard to define. I think Leah mentioned that. What does it mean, ethical AI? And GDPR can be defined. We can download the definitions, the laws, and we can quickly get the discussion with few lawyers and make sure, hey, we don't want to do this cold emailing because it's GDPR unfriendly. With AI, we cannot say that, which complicates the thing. In United States, there is no GDPR, and the companies need to protect themselves because they can be sued. And companies like Google and things like and others, they need to be very careful because if sued, they can, almost like airlines experience the crash of the airplane, the reputation is going down. So that's another motivation. By the way, a couple of days ago, Google changed their privacy policy, and now they publicly mentioned that they can scrape any data from the internet to train the AI. So the question is if that's even possible to define that boundaries and make sure the law is there, even if the administration of President Joe Biden or European Union politicians and governance, if they even catch up, because that's another question. So I don't have an answer to that, but that's a discussion that it's pretty interesting.
But also the same as Google can parse the websites and train them, like we all can. We are sitting here. If we can invest enough in the computing power, we can do the same, right? It's like
yes, we can. Obviously. Yes, I'm writing I have a blog. I'm writing for my blog, and every time I'm writing, I'm using different kind of tools that are trying to find an article for me that I can read, digest, and then write again. Obviously, I couldn't do my job without solutions like BART and other models. But obviously, how I'm going to use it, that's another thing. But yes, it's a feedback cycle that's there for us, but we are also for that cycle as a source and the goal, which is actually kind of things we've never seen before. But that's another story. I'm sorry about that. Maybe it's too much.
So let's jump to a fourth and last topic. AI, maybe it's an extension of what we've been talking so far, ethical AI, governments, and we go to AI governance and regulation. So current regulatory landscape and its limitation. As we've been talking, EU is very rough. It's very tough when it comes to AI regulation. And many, for example, Macron from France has been very critical, saying is developing Europe, and let us be Japan, wherever AI is going to be very, very strong in adoption. So what do you think, Alex, about the limitation of the current regulatory framework that we experience today, very, very early days in any way?
Yeah, we already partly touched on this. So basically, we see that kind of the main job governments are trying to do is the main protective entity in general. But I would say that companies are also trying to do some self-regulation, of course, with the pressure from the society, because they have to serve the users, so customers, users. So basically, of course, they do something, and we have this open source and other community-based work. So I would say current landscape is really skewed towards government, because historically we have governments regulating everything. But I would say we have evidence of companies doing some self-regulation, because they need to work with the customers, so they need to adapt what customers want. And we have these community-based approaches, but maybe I'm missing something as well. Maybe there's more.
In terms of government, it's okay. Any government somehow is trying. For example, in India, there is no framework at all. Still, everything is given to the company, to individuals. But what about the role of companies, as we are more related to business than governments, although governments are, the ball is in their feet in any way. So what about self-regulation and ethical guidance given by the industry and companies itself? Arek?
Well, I think peer pressure can come a long way. I mean, when somebody sets the example of responsibility and good AI and good practices, I mean, it can do a great job as PR, just like that. So I think that, yeah, we're scratching the surface in the sense that well, there are so many different things and avenues that needs to be explored. Like we don't have enough data to train these huge things, and therefore we train them with whatever we have, regardless of how biased they are, and potentially without really understanding the GDPR implications. Was it trained on PII and so on? And what happens if it has already been trained, and can you reverse engineer from there, and all the implications that might have. So I don't know. I think big corporations should be a lot more proactive, leading the way in this area, because they have the money and the power to do that, and the responsibility with all of us. Some of them are doing a fair share, but I don't think that's enough.
Thank you, Arek. Leah?
Well, I don't feel that governments really are the right people to be making ethical diktats for this kind of technology. I don't think that, certainly in the UK, we have quite a lot of ethical issues with our government at the moment. But we see the same within business. If you look at key areas like finance, healthcare, there is a lot of unethical practices. So having this as a peer-driven activity is also quite challenging. I do believe that cultivating a culture of ethics within AI needs to come from the top down, but it's difficult for a team to challenge unethical behavior above them, because then they put themselves in a position of being a whistleblower and being a risk for their jobs and their security. So making it, having processes for people to be able to report issues, to discuss concerns, where they're not going to have difficult consequences is going to be really important. And a collaborative approach between lots of different types of stakeholders who don't have a vested interest or a financial interest in the outcome of these decisions is really important.
Thank you, Leah. I want to close our panel discussion with there are AI we apply to all industry, but there are some that are very critical sectors like healthcare, education, and finance, where mostly today AI applies. Very much AI is intended to strengthen our education system, finance, indeed, but also healthcare. How do you see, guys, a responsible use of AI in such a critical sectors? They are very much the backbone of our society. Alex.
I think we all kind of converge to the idea of the augmentation of the work. So, of course, like doctors, finance specialists, and other critical experts, they still will be learning and training for years and dozens of years to perform how they perform. But that's going to help them. It's like I think it's like in the air. It's like if it's a simple job, not creative, just routine, mundane, and it will be just automated. But if it's a critical job, it will be augmented. And we talked before about the responsible AI development as well. So there will be much more technical and also, let's say, technical barriers and double checks to ensure the output is correct, but also some kind of government or non-government control, like which might be not technical, but yeah, from the bias perspective, ethics perspective, yeah, it's a bit messy answer, but I think it's like in the air. Augmentation, that's the word. Augmentation and more control.
It's a good one. Enrique, do you think we can make sure that AI is going to apply to such a critical sectors in a good and not in a harmful way?
Well, I will play the explainable AI card here. And right now in healthcare and fintech, that's what prevails in terms of AI. If you cannot explain the black box, then you cannot use it for these sectors. And I think that's a great regulation set up for these key sectors. I would keep that up. Behind the scenes AI, it's science, and behind that there's maths, and there's no hand waving in maths. If you cannot explain how a model arrives to a prediction or how the model works, then that is not good. There's no good use case for these key sectors. Or if you're just shoving a bunch of data into a neural network with trying to come up with forecasts, well, if you can't explain how the AI came to those conclusions, then again, I think that's out of the question. Shouldn't be used. These models are statistical constructs, so they should be explainable. And I think there's a fair bit of research nowadays on neural networks and how to interpret them. Basically, open up the Pandora's box, but it's a long way from actually understanding what it's actually doing. So I think explainable AI is a great. We should keep that up in potentially even more dangerous areas, like, for example, marketing. It sounds like a trivial one, but I think we should be careful how that's being used in society with black boxes. Again, some of these should be a matter of explaining how the model works.
Thank you so much, Enrique. Leah, would you like to add something more?
Yes, I think we need to take a light approach when it comes to highly sensitive or high risk areas. For example, the surgery example that was used earlier. What happens if there's a major tech failure in the middle of a brain surgery? What happens if that person then dies? Who takes responsibility for that? Is it the responsibility of the AI, of the power provider, the server provider, or the person who is working in an augmented way with AI to undertake that procedure? We need to make decisions based on the amount of risk that the user and the employee is exposed to.
Thank you, Ria. Arek.
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. That's very interesting. From a consulting perspective, we always look for benchmarks or companies that have done something like that. So I would love to answer that from two perspectives. First one, mention three critical things that we think in future processing companies needs to have in place if they want to make sure that the AI-driven process is fair and transparent. First one is clear statements, what the kind of data we're taking. So for instance, if we are importing data from our customers' wallets, like insurance wallets or currency wallets, and we are taking only this data that we understand are good and the highest quality. And I'm talking about healthcare and financial systems. If there is a gray area, we don't take it. And that should be stated in the company. So there is no issue with like an output. That actually takes us to the narrow AI solutions, which is actually something that solves specific problems. And I will explain an example in a minute based on the company in the United States, the insurance company. Second is obviously, and I really like Enrique answer, there is no space for black box or unexplainable models in those sectors. And we can see the example of Bloomberg. Bloomberg trained their own model. They didn't, as far as I understand, they never partner with ChatGPT. They trained their own model based on their own data, which gives them 100% explainability of the current model, and they have zero black box thing. And the third thing, actually, I have it in my notes when you guys were talking, is continuous monitoring and evaluation, which includes bringing third party for audits. If that's three elements are in place, we can have something on the market like Lemonade. That's the example I want to quickly mention. Lemonade is an insurance company that 75% of the claims are conducted by claims and applications for insurance are conducted by two chatbots, which are basically machine learning and deep learning mixed. But those insurance are in a specific niche, which means they are narrow AI, focus on specific cases which are simpler to predict, still very hard to do, but they are not generalized. And one of the interesting feature which actually explain what does it mean transparency is in Lemonade, if you want to fill up the form, insurance form, you can record the video, and that video will be translated to text, and that text will be used to fill up the form automatically, which drastically lower time that customer needs to invest in filling up the application. But they quickly tell you that this data is using only for that. So that's a transparency example. The specific goal for using that data, they don't take more data from you that they need, as they claim. And the third one, their model is their model, which they understand how it works. The question is if we should be able to understand how the model works. Because as we said, OpenAI said we'll never publish, at least in the near future, we'll never publish the documentation of how our models works. The question is, and I don't know the answer, if companies like Lemonade, Apple, and others, they should publish the explanations how the models work. But that's another story. So I would say those three elements, including what Enrique said, plus that Lemonade example, could be something very important for the commercial world, because the bottom line is the goal of business. Business will always improve the bottom line. And some of the businesses were doing like Lemonade in a very transparent way. Some of them will be exploring more gray areas. and some of them will never explain how they do it. And that example is Apple. If you see at Apple, they never mention that they're using AI. They don't use the word AI in their latest product explanation and things like that. That might use that the hardware is kind of AI powered, but we don't know how Apple is using AI to craft their business. But obviously, if those three elements are in place, I believe the business can be done ethically and can be AI powered. But that's my personal opinion.
Thank you so much, Arek. Unfortunately, we
Thank you,
are
Max.
close to close our panel discussion today. I would like to close with a couple of comments from our audience, and we can't answer to all of them. I only bring two of them, and we can briefly, maybe one of you guys can follow up with Theo. When tech replaces an industry, it creates a new industry. Do we believe that the new industry will support the same number of jobs? That's a tough call. And I don't know, Alex, you want to briefly answer Theo?
We historically know that all industrial revolutions created more jobs. There are more and more people employed. The wealth of individuals is growing, inequality is dropping. We have the data that supports it. That's the brief answer. I don't know why we should treat AI industrial revolution differently than the others. And from the others, data supported.
Thank you so much, Alex. And I don't know who wants to take this second and last, because we can't go any further. Can we have a discussion we did already about talking about unbiased AI? I don't know, Arek, would you like just very briefly, because we had to close?
Can we have a discussion on various strategies used by business to ensure unbiased AI, since many are concerned about it? That's a very hard question. I don't think I can answer that at the level I would love to. I always, but I think garbage in, garbage out. We need to remember, and everybody knows that here, all of you guys are experts, that we need to train those models. The models need to get something. And that starts with data. Today, if you ask ChatGPT, give me opinion of something that happened a month ago, it will give you a comment, I was trained of November 2022 data or whatever. So the data quality is very important. And I know it's kind of, everybody knows that. But if we really dig into that, what that means, that's where the question comes. So first strategy is basically to have a data quality on the C-level agenda, which is actually also connected to profiling the data very early, which means that the strategy of profiling the data very early means that we need to take data at the early stage of the process and check the quality of the data on a small batch and see what the result is going to be. So instead of doing like the cancer on every piece of our body, we start with a heart or ears, whatever, the little something that we can actually make sure that the profiling works very well. That's one strategy that I can see customers of us are doing. The second is using to pre-train solutions, like I mentioned, Databricks, Snowflake, Azure, AWS, whatever you want it, you call it, you name it. But those companies have some kind of things in place. So for instance, Amazon, if you are a logistic company, they have a solution that can actually predict the window when as a small shop you should ship that the product to your company. As a small company, you don't have money to predict those with the accuracy level that Amazon can do it, so you can leverage that. So second, using pre-made blocks to use it. That's the second strategy. And the third one is really making a decision about your own model versus the black box. That's a strategy that can actually inject a lot of bias. Today, we know if we take ChatGPT for granted and we let ChatGPT read our financial statement of our company and answer the PwC or McKinsey, whoever is your auditor, questions, that's actually bring a lot of bias. So that's another strategy to pick up if we should have our own models or take something from the market. I would say those three strategies I can see as the most common. But as I mentioned before, there is so much on the market that I still don't know, and we keep exploring, that I am not satisfied with this answer, and it's not the final one, that's for sure.
Thank you so much, Arek. We had to close our panel discussion. I'm very sorry. I was enjoying so much. I'm enjoying so much. Before closing, and we need to say who is a winner for our hashtag. So let's wait for the winner coming as the team is working on it. So we can announce our team and our winner. And after, let's see, how does it go? Voila.
I hope the draw is not biased.
Yeah.
Let's see.
The Max is
Suraj
going to win.
Pereira.
Yeah, congratulations.
Let's see the
Perfect.
winner.
Awesome. That's
So,
great.
let's see
YouTube
how
user,
we
I guess.
go. So thank you guys.
Nice.
Thank you.
Super cool.
Thank you so much, Alex, Enrique, Leah, and Arek. It's been such an insightful, beautiful discussion. I do hope all the audience enjoyed, and I'm sure they did. Thank you, everyone, has been watching us today. So we pause for a couple months with the panel discussions. We take a break for summer, and we are back in September, October. Again, thank you very much to everyone, guys. I really enjoyed today.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Max. Thank you
It
for
was
the
a pleasure.
invitation.
Thank you, guys. Great to
Thanks,
meet you.
everyone.
Take care.